good morning, everybody. We're here on a Tuesday, and so I think this is either day 3 or day 4 of our seaborne Antarctica experience. I'm frankly losing a little track, but we are now above the Antarctic Circle, and we are going to take a Zodiac cruise this morning around and see more colonies of penguins, hopefully some seals, and we hope to add to our whale sightings onto yesterday's minke whale and one humpback whale that we saw. So stay tuned, see what we find. It's another beautiful day in Antarctic waters and another start to the day with a double shot espresso drink in Seabourn Square. Now, this is a planned easy day as the ship transitions from the southern peninsula on the way to the northern islands off the Antarctic Peninsula, and today marks the middle point in our adventures, and I'm already feeling a little bit sad about that fact. As the Zodiacs pass by our balcony, we know it's time to start layering up for a chilly morning tour. Today, we are being guided by Jeff Bullied.
You guys can slide down here, please. Just make yourself comfortable. Please. Because we'd like to go from this point to that point too. So, pretty smooth out today. Great whale spotting, and there are whales on here.
Oh, nice.
There are seals on Ice Floes. So, here's the big rule today. 2 rules. You see this area here?
Don't go in it.
You can hang on to that. You can hang on to that. But please, God, don't ever touch this shifter
Yeah.
or the wheel.
And with the safety briefing done, we are off to see if we can find a few whales. And after only a couple of minutes of cruising, we find a mother and her calf.
Yeah. He's just kind of logging right now. Sometimes they just kind of do that when they're sleeping. They could be sleeping. They do not mate for life. The mother and the baby calf are pretty much attached to the hip for at least 3 years.
Humpback whales' preferred method of rest is logging. We learned these whales are voluntary breathers, or they have to think about every single breath they take in order to not drown. So in order to rest, they shut down only one hemisphere of their brain, leaving the other half to manage breathing and remain aware of their surroundings. They will usually sleep about 30 minutes at a time, and the longest recorded sleep of a humpback whale was 48 minutes. Whales and dolphins in general only sleep a fraction of the 25 to 30% that humans do. The sighting of humpback whales and the abundance of crabeater seals tells us that we are now in krill-rich waters. The expedition team during our evening updates had shown the krill density maps, and since crossing over the Antarctic Circle, we were now right on top of the biomass. With the whales resting, though, it was time to move on to the ice floes and look for some more seals. You'll notice on this crabeater seal the deep scars, and we talked in the earlier episode about the predation by orcas and leopard seals, and that's probably the case with this one, who survived an early attack. Near some of these crabeater seals, there are red blood-like stains on the ice, and also red stains around their tail regions and even around their mouths. Now, this is not blood, but rather the result of eating the bright red krill, similar to the penguins we have seen covered in red guano stains. What we found striking about these furry-faced seals is the amount of diversity that they had in their coloring and markings, and also even in some of their attitudes. Most of the seals paid us no mind whatsoever, but others got kind of worried and started to move off, so we had to back off slowly so that they could go back to relaxing on the ice. Dude, relax. It's all good. Antarctica never disappointed with the sheer beauty of jagged peaks, and Fish Islands is no exception. We found the natural ice sculptures simply stunning. And one of the best things that Jeff did for us during this tour was to find a quiet spot, kill the motor, and allow us a few moments to just sit and experience Antarctica in silence. Listening to the lapping of the sea against the ice, the whistle of the shag flying above, the sound and the feeling of cold wind against cheek was refreshing to the soul.
Wow. Anybody got an A&A card?
Good reminder, Jeff. So just how safe are these rubber boats we have been touring on this week? Zodiacs are considered very safe vessels, which due to their construction make them virtually impossible to sink. The large U-shaped pontoon we all sit on contain 5 airtight compartments, so in the event of a puncture, just that segment deflates. And the pontoons themselves are really there for stability. The ribs of the boat and the air-filled keel are sufficient to keep the boat on top of the water and operable. There was one Zodiac on the expedition that got to demonstrate this ability when a single compartment deflated, and it returned to the venture just fine. The biggest danger for passengers is that beautiful blue, icy cold water. And there have been incidents in the past 3 years whereby cruise passengers on other operators were thrown into the water and could not be rescued before succumbing to the cold water. Hard fact is, even the most fit of human beings will lose consciousness in 15 minutes or less in sub-32 degree water. Guides now for all the lines are dressed in dry suits so they can safely rescue any passenger that may fall into the water. Seabourn also always sends the Zodiacs out in pairs, and during landing operations or tours in rougher weather, there are multiple safety boats deployed. Operators like Seabourn are very conscious of safety for passengers and crews, and they do a great job. But let's be clear. You are visiting a hostile environment that even in the height of Antarctic summer challenges the hardiest of creatures for survival, so there is inherent risk. Be conscious of that fact. Respect that fact. Follow all the instructions and guidelines your operator provides, and respect that you are in a place that does not care if you get home. So back on board the Venture, we go out on deck, do a little bit of additional whale watching, iceberg watching, and those whales we saw earlier, we're starting to be a little bit more active, going to look for another meal of krill. And speaking of krill, it was about time for trivia. Today, Kriller Instinct took our second victory, and we won the coveted white Seabourn hat. A little bit of history on the Fish Islands as we cruise along. They were discovered during the British Graham Land Expedition, which lasted from 1934 to 1937, and was led by the Australian polar explorer John Ryman.
Yeah.
And there they go.
Nice.
I think they're playing a game. They'll probably come back to the other side. Look at the tracks. Sorry about that. It was exciting seeing the penguins. Now, Graham Land is the northern tip or portion of the Antarctic Peninsula, and it was named after the head of the Admiralty at the time of its discovery. It's also claimed by Argentina, Chile, and the UK. In addition to cruising the Grandidier Channel Day, we'd also have 2 conversations. One with Mike Smith on the brush-tailed trio of penguins, the Gen 2, the Chinstrap, and the Adelie, and also a review of Antarctic geology with Isaac Yebra. So you may notice as we travel up the Grandidier Channel that the weather's getting a little bit darker and a little bit more ominous to the north. And we would shortly learn at our nightly briefing that the winds were about to change. Instead of moving to Port Charcot as we were supposed to go, we would instead be heading to Neko Harbor, since a significant storm was brewing out to our northwest. And by evening, we would see the weather was picking up with higher winds and more of a swell building in the Grandidier Channel. In addition, the 3 to 5 day forecast for the ride home was looking ominous as well, so change was coming. And we had been fortunate. These first 4 days had been virtually perfect with tremendous weather, great animal sightings, and the ability to follow what Juan had laid out as our predicted schedule. But a schedule when on an expedition is really a hope, a best-case scenario that will likely need to change. And the cruise line will always be tied to two main objectives. First, passenger, crew, and vessel safety is paramount. And second, this ship will be back at the dock to be resupplied and new passengers on board on time. So if anything threatens to slow down that return to Ushuaia, such as winds or seas, which means you have to go a little bit slower across the Drake, you're going to head back early. And we had watched the behavior of ships going to Antarctica and back to Ushuaia or Punta Arenas that we were going to be on and friends were on, and it seemed like a lot of times ships have to come back early. But luckily aboard the Seabourn Venture, happy hour is always consistent, so we had our caviar and headed off to dinner. So no late night for us. We're going to be in the early group tomorrow, 7:45 a.m. call to go ashore. So we're going to have a nice simple dinner, maybe some soup, little scallops, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Good night, everybody.